So I didn't have time to discuss this in my previous One Piece chapter review, but now I've done my research and I know what most people are saying online. There's a theory I thought was really good. I'll be talking about that in a little bit, but let me just set it up, okay? The logic that I see repeated the most is the following. Gear second, it has a change in the blood flow that increases Luffy's speed. Gear third, there's a change in the bone structure that allows Luffy to increase the size of some of his limbs. Let me just say that size is not synonymous with power, okay? They can coincide, and something that's very big can be very powerful. That is true. In fact, most of the time, that's true. But that's not something that is set in stone. Just because you're big doesn't mean you're strong, and just because you're small doesn't mean you're weak. Now let me just talk about this theory that I found online. The link for it is in the description. Now there's two links in the description. One of them is for the original post of the theory, and then another one has pictures, but it's the same thing. Now the core of this theory is basically that Luffy is going to be absorbing some of his opponent's attacks. Now think about this as kind of like the bumper on your car. So when that hits, the bumper takes some of the impact, right? So it's kind of the same thing, except with Luffy, let's say somebody hits Luffy. So it hits Luffy, and the impact and the force stays within him. It stays in his body. It could even start to shake a little bit, except he actually doesn't absorb that damage. He actually channels the power through his body, and he releases it the moment that he needs to. When he releases the power back, according to this theory, it's not just the power of the attack that he was able to absorb. It's his strength plus his opponent's strength that he's returning. That's some pretty broken stuff. It reminds me of Wobbuffet from Pokemon. You want to know why Wobbuffet is banned from most Pokemon tourneys? It's because of that. Because if you hit Wobbuffet and it can predict what you're going to hit him with, if it's a physical or special attack, it can return the same damage that you did to him, except double the amount. At least that's how it was back in the day when I used to play. Now let's talk about the drawbacks, because every gear has to have a drawback. The first one is that if Luffy doesn't connect the hits, he basically turns into a pile of goo. His rubber properties are all messed up. So think about it as if he were exposed to sea stone. He'd just be like, and he wouldn't be able to do shit. Now, the second drawback of this theory is that there is a window of time for Luffy to defeat his opponent in this mode. And that's why I think this theory fits the scenario that we're in right now in Dressrosa, because there literally is a time limit because of the birdcage. Now, if Luffy doesn't do anything with the power that he's absorbed within that window of time, he's fucked. That power is going to stay within him, and it's going to start tearing up his organs. Now, the thing that didn't sit well with me at first from this theory was the fact that it kind of depends on Luffy, counting on his opponent to hit him. So if he doesn't get hit by his opponent physically, because, the opponent can be a special attacker too. So if Luffy doesn't receive any type of physical damage, then what's he going to do with it? But then the person who made this theory up actually addressed this. He said that maybe Luffy can start off the fight by hitting himself a little bit. And when I say hitting himself, I don't mean like, No, it could just be like... Now, I don't necessarily agree with this theory 100%, but I do think it's a very well-constructed theory for the most part. And that's why I decided to talk about it. So let me just tell you what I think. First of all, I think it's important to acknowledge that story-wise, Oda left some hints, some very good hints about what we can expect in terms of Gear 4th. And most of the hints come from last week's chapter. In the last chapter, Doflamingo told Luffy, your speed is okay. He actually gave him credit, which is kind of weird. Your speed is okay, but your punches, I'm not feeling anything. So, whatever Gear 4th is, it has to be something that allows Luffy to maintain his speed while at the same time increasing the power of his punches. And that's the problem with 3rd, because even though Luffy's arms or legs get bigger, the attack takes more time to land, so that's why Doflamingo was able to dodge Grizzly Magnum so easily. Another hint that we get is that Luffy told Cavendish, I need you to get these people out of here. Meaning that if they had stayed, and Law and Cavendish are staying, by the way, they wouldn't be safe. I don't think Luffy can guarantee people's safety if they stay. I think whatever Gear 4th is, it's going to have enough strength to destroy the entire hill. If you remember, back in Fishman Island, the Ark was about to kill all those people. Luffy was trying to destroy the Ark. And when the Sea Kings came in to hold the Ark up, they said that if they had arrived a little bit later, Luffy would have been able to destroy the entire Ark. It means that Luffy knew that he could have destroyed the Ark just using Gear 3rd and Armament Haki alone. There was no need for him to activate Gear 4th. Whatever Gear 4th is, it has to have a time constraint. Because Doflamingo just wouldn't shut up talking about time in the previous chapter. Honestly, I think that Gear 4th is going to be enough to wipe the floor with Doflamingo. And there's two main reasons that are related to the story for why I think this. First reason is that if Luffy doesn't wipe the floor with Doflamingo, what's he going to do against Kaido? I mean, Doflamingo shits his pants just thinking about Kaido. What is Luffy going to do if he doesn't wipe the floor with Doflamingo? The second, and not only that, but if Luffy beats Doflamingo's ass bad enough, he technically will be saving Doflamingo's life. Because I don't think Kaido is going to come all the way to Dressrosa to beat Doflamingo up when he's already fucking beat up. You know, that unless he actually wants to kill Doflamingo, which he has done. Remember Moria? Kaido killed all of Moria's Nakama. And I can see like Moria sort of becoming an ally to Luffy in the future, but that's a whole nother topic. The second reason why I think Gear 4th is just gonna mop the floor with Doflamingo is because of the way that Oda has set up the gears in the past. You remember when Luffy activated Gear 2nd for the first time? What happened after that fight? Like when he used Bazooka to just KO Blueno or Bruno, the CP9 agent. What was Luffy gonna do? He thought that he was still standing, so he was like, okay, well, I guess I'll try this. Gear 3rd. He was gonna use Gear 3rd, meaning that he knew Gear 2nd and had Gear 3rd in reserve just in case. So the probability of Luffy having Gear 5th already is pretty high. Another thing that I noticed in the previous chapter, there's a very small panel of Zoro and Usopp and Kinemon. Now in the panel, Zoro's looking like, he always looks like that. But if you look at Usopp, it looks like Usopp is telling him, hey, can you do something about the birdcage? I think Zoro can do something about the birdcage, but I think he trusts his captain, Sencho, enough to know that Luffy can handle it. The logic here is that if Luffy takes out Doflamingo, the birdcage disappears. However, I think that just to play with people's expectations, it would be a nice touch if Luffy just takes out the birdcage first, you know, just to fuck with Doflamingo and then takes out Doflamingo. Now my last point is going to be this. Luffy has been known to model his attacks or power-ups based on the stuff that he sees or that he experiences. In Arlong Park, Luffy made up an attack because he saw a pinwheel. Gear 2nd is based basically on the properties of a steam machine. Gear 3rd is basically, those are the limbs of a giant. Red Hawk was inspired by Ace. So if we kind of accept the notion that Gear 4th is going to be muscle related, I really don't see why Luffy could not model that mode based on the Nightmare Luffy mode that he had back in Thriller Bark. However, because of Bellamy's role in this arc, if Luffy were to take out Doflamingo with a spring-related attack or a spring-related punch, just to reference Bellamy, that would be really cool. Because it would be like him returning some of Bellamy's pain onto Doflamingo. Gomu gomu no! Like the video if you did, appreciate that, subscribe to my channel. Next week, I'll just wake up, I'll turn on my camera, wipe the shit out of my eyes and start reading the chapter, so can't wait for that. Thanks for watching, guys. Comment, tell me what you thought about this. Bye.